Dr. Lauren Wright, Princeton University political scientist, and Maura Gillespie, BlueStack Strategies founder and principal. Welcome to both of you.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving indeed. All right, let's start with showing our audience the Trump nominees who were targeted with harassment or swatting. They are John Ratcliffe, Pete Hegseth, Elise Stefanik, Tom Homan, Lee Zeldin, Howard Lutnick, Brooke Rollins, Scott Turner, and Lori Chavez DeRemer. Lauren, what do you make of it?
Well, we just know this is not a right-wing phenomenon, which is unfortunately what, we've heard a lot of these stories combated about Trump has created this atmosphere of violence. We're in an unprecedented time in America, and it's really been a one-sided story, and that's not what the research shows. These crazy people making these threats are inside and outside the country. They're on both sides of the political aisle. And so I just think that both parties need to take a moment now, especially Democrats who have been saying that Trump created this, and try to bring the temperature down, try to assuage fears, because there are a lot of those circulating, and it's a really serious story for Thanksgiving, but it's something we have to deal with as a country, unfortunately.
Caroline Levitt with the Trump transition saying about this, quote, with President Trump as our example, dangerous acts of intimidation and violence will not deter us. Maura, it's not just the official paying the price here. In many cases, they have young families. What do you make of this threat?
I think, one, obviously, we all should be, condemning political violence that has no place in our country or any really conversation. It should all be condemned, whether you're right, left, or center. We should not tolerate such acts, and I hope that it is investigated to the full extent, as we don't know necessarily if it's homegrown or all overseas. But I think as we're celebrating, Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to you both, let's look around the table and remember that we are human beings. We are not just our politics, and I think we've forgotten that in the political rhetoric that has gotten so divisive and has gotten so muddied. It's important to remember that there are families involved here, that there are people at their core, that they are not just their job, they are not just their politics. And I would behoove everyone, and I think as a country, it would benefit us to remember that we have the same goals. We all want to leave this place better than we found it. We may not agree on how to get there, but at the crux of it, that's we should be remembering the humanity element, and that we're all essentially on the same team when it comes to what's best for the country.
Amen. All right, let's pivot to the next topic, which is the aftermath of Vice President Kamala Harris's election loss. David Plouffe, a senior advisor, says that their polling internally suggested she was never in the lead. Let's play him.
I think it surprised people because there was these public polls that came out in late September, early October, showing us with leads that we never saw. When Kamala Harris became the nominee, she was behind. We kind of, climbed back. And even post-debate, we still had ourselves down, in the battleground states, but very close.
Lauren, what's your assessment of that?
I think this is a pretty widespread phenomenon. I think, Kamala Harris, if she had a margin of error lead in a handful of swing states at some week in October, that's something we shouldn't have drawn too many conclusions from in the first place. And so part of what we saw is both campaigns didn't want to be, overconfident, but they also didn't want to depress their voters, and they want to get them out to the polls. But certainly, the circumspect actions have to be mostly among Democrats. I don't think this election was a case of people coming out in droves because they absolutely necessarily love Donald Trump. Right. He is disliked by a lot of the country, but it's because people rejected the agenda of Democrats that he won so resoundingly.
Maura, was the reality here that this was a change election and Vice President Harris failed to articulate how she would change from President Biden?
In a lot of ways, yes, but I think that also stems from the fact that you had, advisors from the Biden campaign and the Biden team advising Harris now. And so I do think that she was, in a lot of ways, set up for failure. I think that there was, you had Jen O'Malley Dillon, you had Anita Dunn, and they were the ones that were, pushing President Biden to do that debate in June. And then within a month, they're now on board to be the, kind of lead architects for the Harris campaign. I think there was a lot of mismanagement there. And yes, I do think this was an election of change. And I think that pretty much any Republican running would have likely won this in a landslide. So I do think that this was a case of change in the economy.
Maura Gillespie, Julie Wright, thank you so much. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.